Welcome back to Six Sad Lit, the podcast where we dive deep into the darkest corners of fiction, unearth the voices that dare to go there, and celebrate the beautifully unhinged stories that refuse to flinch. I'm your host, Jen Eastwood, and today's episode is one that I've been dying to share with you. Joining me is none other than Gretchen Felker-Martin, the Massachusetts-based horror powerhouse whose debut novel Manhunt absolutely blew the roof off the genre. Named Vulture's #1 best book of 2022 and hailed by Esquire, Library Journal, and Paste as one of the year's top horror novels, Manhunt is brutal, brilliant, and unlike anything else on the shelves. Her latest book, Cuckoo, has already landed on the USA Today bestseller list, and trust me, it's just as devastating and sharp. But Gretchen isn't just shaping the future of horror on the page. She's also a fearless film critic, with essays and reviews appearing in Time, Nylon, The Outline, and on her Patreon, where she continues to dissect horror with her signature insight and razor-edged prose. In this conversation, we get into it all. The creative process behind Manhunt and Cuckoo, the deep, messy beauty of writing flawed characters, and the importance of exploring taboo themes. We talk about what it means to be a writer when your very existence feels political, how childhood reading shapes creative obsessions, and why horror remains one of the most vital genres today. So, light a candle, check under your bed, and let's get into it. Hi Gretchen, it is such an honour to have you join me on the Six Sad Lit podcast. I'm so excited to chat to you about your work. And just to kick into it, can you tell me what you're reading at the moment?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually reading a kind of a trashy novel from I think the 1980s by Gary Jennings. It's called Aztec, and it's sort of in the Shogun mold where a white guy got way too into a foreign culture and wrote like a really huge, sprawling, sexy novel about it.
Oh my God.
And unfortunately, it's really good.
That's so funny. I feel like I actually have heard of that one before. Like, I feel like I can see the cover in my head. It's possible that I've passed it by at like one of those local book sales or something. When there's
Yeah, it was really huge when it came out and has been largely forgotten since, so there's tons of copies floating around out there.
Oh my gosh, amazing. That sounds hilarious. Yeah, I'd quite like to check that out. Congratulations on the TV adaptation of Manhunt with Lily Wachowski. Sorry, that is absolutely huge. Such a beautiful marriage of one of my favorite film creators and also truly one of my favorite horror novels of all time. What has that been like for you?
Well, I mean, obviously at first it was just incredibly overwhelming to have this woman who really shaped my own creative life and who is such an icon to me and to so many other transgender artists come down and say, I think your book is good enough that I'm going to like devote a lot of my time and energy to it. That really blew my mind. And since then, it's been a lot of meetings and it's been a lot of waiting and just a lot of Hollywood stuff, which is not terribly exciting. But working with Lily has really been a dream. She's such a thoughtful, passionate mentor. She's able to talk back to producers and investors in a way that I don't feel super comfortable doing. It's really nice to sort of be able to hide behind my mother duck.
That's so great. I'm so it just brings me so much joy that this collaboration is happening. And to your point, like what an absolute icon to be sort of spearheading it from the Hollywood side. What's that been like for you in the sense that I know you are a massive horror movie fan and you watch a lot of horror film and television and you do your reviews on Patreon as well. What's it been like being on that side of the fence, more of the screenwriting, production side of things?
Real. I think the thing that jumped out to me the most is just what a tremendous amount of work goes into even the simplest, briefest television show. You have hundreds or thousands of people working to create this couple hours of story, and it's really overwhelming.
Definitely takes a village, right? It is
Yeah,
so
well,
incredible.
literally.
Yeah, it's so incredible. Do you ever worry that it won't I mean, I know how this is with Lily Wachowski behind the project. It's only ever going to be amazing because everything she touches turns to gold. But how, in terms of taking it from the book to the film, do you ever worry about how it's going to be adapted? Or I know, just thinking about authors previously who end up not having a huge amount of creative control. Do you have that worry, or are you just like, nah, this is going to be great?
I'd be lying if I said I wasn't worried about it. We're going to have
Yeah.
to place it with a network if we want to get it made. And it's really going to depend on who we place it with and what their level of personal hands-on involvement is and how comfortable they feel taking risks. Because if we make this story as it is, it's going to be really controversial.
Yeah, for sure. I think that is what makes it so magical. And when I read Manhunt for the first time, it was honestly like the most amazing piece of queer horror I've honestly ever read. I mean that so seriously. Like
Thank you so much.
as a member of the queer community, I just was like, this is so, it's so good, and it's so unflinching and raw and honest. And I do feel like, I don't know, there's just nobody's really having those tough conversations and actually catering to representations across, of all the different people who make up our wonderful community. I was also really struck when I finished reading Cuckoo recently how that is another outstanding piece of work, and it was so different to Manhunt as well, which really was incredible. I know that Manhunt was the first of your books that you've written to be traditionally published, if you will. So what was that like, having it picked up and distributed at a much larger scale?
It was a huge change. Before I published Manhunt, I was very poor. I did survival sex work for a while in my younger days, and I was really just sort of scraping by, sometimes stealing groceries to make it, another week. And things really did change very quickly. And it was overwhelming. I had to learn a lot of things really fast. Number one was that it suddenly became very important for me to shut up online. Yeah, I got in a lot of trouble early on because I was used to being a nobody. And when you're a nobody, you can say whatever you want.
That's
Not
so
so much once you're, a little bit in the public eye.
Manhunt became a massive success, and it made it onto best lists, including Vulture's #1 best book of 2022 and one of the best horror novels of 2022 by Esquire, Library Journal, and Paste, which is incredible. How did it feel to have it so widely well received?
It felt great, honestly. It felt affirming and exciting. And also, it was surreal because as people were telling me what a great novel I'd written and how brilliantly I'd captured the moment was happening and the tide was turning socially against transgender people. So I was enjoying my little piece of success, and at the same time, I was watching myself and everyone I love be endangered on a daily basis by legislature, by the New York Times, and it's only accelerated since.
Yeah, it definitely has a whole new poignancy given how the world has devolved, if you will, since then. Which to me feels all the more important. Especially, I actually felt like for the queer community to really understand our own. I had never, honestly, it's shameful to say, but I was really struck by, after reading your work, by how limited and rare the actual accurate representation of the diversity of queer people and bodies in our community is in queer media, of all things. Like, it really highlighted to me how I had never read anything like that, and that actually felt quite shameful to me, that until you started releasing your books, I don't think I'd ever seen a well-developed transgender character, or even a fat body actually with a personality rather than just being a punchline to a joke. Like, that really struck me. And
It's a big reason that I put those things into my work. Not only are they important to my life, but they're largely absent from popular culture. First of all, of course, I believe that any human life is worth writing about because human life is inherently fascinating. But beyond that, I think there's an extra layer of interest and thematic depth to writing about marginalized bodies and marginalized lives.
I agree. I think some of your characters are definitely some of the most interesting I've ever read in horror as well. Like their backstories, and you have so many characters in your books too, and they're so different. Like in Cuckoo, I was struck by these 6 core protagonists who all felt so different and so interesting and unique and had their own things going on. They felt really real to me, which I think is a real testament to your skill as a writer.
Thank you so much.
How have you found this representation to be received, particularly by the queer community?
Well, I know that the people who come to my events are excited and enthusiastic and engaged, and I have heard from a lot of people at signings how much it meant to them to see people like them on the page, how in a lot of cases it was their first time experiencing that. And that means the world to me. That's why I'm doing what I do. Critically and in a broader sense, there's been some resistance to it, but I'm not concerned about people who aren't, you know, interested in that basic premise.
I definitely felt, and I made my review for both of your books, and anyone who doesn't seem to get it, it sort of feels like, would they ever? Or it's sort of like maybe the message is not really meant for them anyway.
Right.
I've heard some writers talk about the daunting nature of writing a follow-up after an initial big, what would you say, commercial success, I guess. Did you feel any of that going into Cuckoo, or what was that like for you?
Yeah, certainly. I had never had to perform like that in a commercial market. And once I had done it once, I felt a lot of pressure to do it again. And that was stressful and difficult. I'm sure every other writer would say this, but it sure would be great to not have to make art under capitalism.
That is the fantasy. Imagine. Imagine what would exist.
I know.
And you have a novella coming out this year, which is really exciting. Can you tell us
I
a little bit
do.
about that?
So my next book is Black Flame, and it is about a deeply repressed lesbian film archivist who works at this little conservative film archive on Staten Island. And at the beginning of the story, the archive is in financial trouble, and they get presented with this opportunity to restore a previously lost film. This is a black magic exploitation film from the 90s that was made by a collective of queer Jewish and Romani actors and performers right before the Holocaust. And Ellen, my protagonist, has to work on this film and has to try to restore it. And as she does, not only is she confronted with her own desires and her separation from her body and her life, but she begins to believe that the things depicted in the film are really happening, that the figures in it are alive, and she descends into this world of the film.
That sounds so good. Oh my
I really
gosh.
hope people like it. I'm
My
very
God.
excited to get it out there.
That is such a good premise. Like
Thank you.
I can like imagine it in my head. Oh, that sounds so exciting. I love discussions or novels set around film. I just find that really interesting. That one, oh, that sounds good. I'm going to have to suggest that for our queer book club. It sounds very exciting. When does that come out for those listening?
August 5th.
August 5th. Okay, I'm marking that down in the calendar. So it's a really big year for you. There's so much going on. Like it's so exciting to see the things happening. And I know you've signed a deal with your publisher as well for more books as well, which is
Yes, I
really
have
exciting.
2 more novels coming on the current deal.
That is great news for us. I'm so excited you're so original, and everything I read from you is so fascinating and interesting. So that is amazing news. Your characters are always so well developed. They're really real. They're flawed in believable ways. They're really authentic. How do you create a cast of characters that has so much depth and so many unique characteristics to them? How do you go about starting to flesh out those characters?
A synthesis of a number of things. I have spent my life reading and watching films, so I have a sense of what makes characters interesting. I find that small details are very important. You think of a character like Tony Soprano, who's so universally critically beloved, and for very good reason. And he has all these little idiosyncrasies. He has his white bathrobe. He eats ice cream sundaes. He has all these little behavioral tics, and there are bigger things too, like he's kind of a mama's boy in this kind of messed up psychological way. He has a violent, immediate temper. So you layer all these big and little traits together, and you kind of come up with a facsimile of a human baklava. The other thing that I find very useful is to consider people who have made me feel strongly one way or another in real life and try to adapt the things that make me feel that way to the page.
I love that. I also love the baklava analogy.
Thank you.
It's amazing. Do you have any favorite characters of either of your first two books?
My own stuff, it's always tricky. I really loved writing indie. I really loved writing Joe and Shelby in Cuckoo.
They made me cry. I'm not going to lie.
Thank you.
I was deeply, deeply invested in their storylines. They were beautiful characters. Absolutely. And you put them through so much shit as well. Like both in Manhunt and Cuckoo, the characters go through some really harrowing stuff. How do you know how far to push them or how far to take them before it's too much? Or where's that line for you?
Well, it depends on what I want the reader to feel and what I want to feel while I'm making it. Typically, what I do is I push until I feel bad, and then I push a little more, and then I leave it at that. And sometimes I come back and reevaluate, but it is all contingent on how I want the reader to experience it.
I think that it definitely makes them so fascinating. Just
Yeah,
their sheer grit and resilience is inspiring.
it's important to me to create discomfort for the reader, and putting characters through hell is one way to do that because the reader empathizes with the character, they might feel sympathetic pain on their behalf, and that gets them where I want them.
Can you talk a little bit about what your inspiration was for Manhunt and Cuckoo, respectively?
Yeah, absolutely. So with Manhunt, you have Tori Peters' Infect Your Friends and Loved Ones. You have this sort of weird psychosexual gender undercurrents of 28 Days Later, Alice Sheldon's The Screwfly Solution, all of these either gender-based or highly gendered sexual apocalypses. I felt like there was so much unexplored space in them because they're about cis people and mostly straight people. And I wanted to go in there and tell a story that could easily happen in those worlds on the margins where no one is looking or paying attention, because that's what I'm interested in. With Cuckoo, I wanted to write a creature feature. I wanted to go play in John Carpenter and Stephen King and, you know, Invasion of the Body Snatchers' backyard and just mash all those things that I love together and see what I could do with them.
I was blown away by your descriptions of the creature in Cuckoo.
Thank you. I had a lot of fun.
My gosh, I feel like they should be teaching this in like MFAs. It was just like some of the most incredible descriptive writing I think I've ever read.
That is incredibly flattering. Thank you.
How do you approach crafting a new project?
Honestly, having an idea for a new thing is the easiest thing in the world to me. It happens whether I want to or not at this point. I have an idea for a new story or a new book every day, and I have to pick the ones that resonate with me most strongly, that I'm most interested in. It's sort of like horse sense, you know it when you see it, a winner.
Yeah, I was going to ask you too, how do you know when an idea is novel worthy or is worth the investment of time, I guess, because it's a massive undertaking, right? Turning those themes and ideas into a full manuscript.
Oh, it is. It's a huge amount of work. You never know if you made the right decision because you can't write every book. It's ultimately about what you want to do, because you don't want to get stuck spending a year on a book that you're not interested in and don't believe in. So, I always tell new writers you should really go with your gut. That said, once you've gone with it, you have to stick with it. You need to finish your projects.
How do you find the will to persevere through a project?
I am a miserable workaholic. There's this story that has become a running joke with my friend and I. She's my co-writing buddy, Sarah Hinckley, whose first novel is coming out next year, Stain the Cleanest Mirror, which is just the most unbelievable vampire novel. But
Sounds
anyway,
very up my alley.
when I was a kid, I took a few classes at the local community college, And there was a professor there who had met Isaac Asimov in the 70s. And this was a very big deal to me because I loved Isaac Asimov when I was a kid, before I knew what a jackass he was. And I asked her, oh my God, that must have been so incredible. What was he like? And she looked at me and said, he really seemed like he just wanted to go home and work. And that's unfortunately me. I've become Isaac Asimov.
Minus the assholery, I presume.
Yeah, I mean, to the best of my ability. But I could be doing almost anything, and at some point I'm going to want to go home and work. I've just drilled it into myself to such an extent that it's the thing I love to do most. I love to write, even when it's miserably unfun and punishing.
And it so often is, right? Like I
Yes.
am working on my first novel too, and honestly, I'm like, mostly it's pain.
Yeah, every once in a while you get a great day where you're in the zone and it just flies out of you. But mostly it's hard work because it's a craft, and executing a craft is difficult.
To that as well, are there any challenges you face when you're covering taboo topics? I say taboo, but, challenging, difficult topics.
Well, sometimes it can be emotionally complicated for me to write about something difficult. I may have experiences that resonate with it or feelings about it that'll color it. My editor, Kelly O'Connor at Tor Nightfire, is so understanding and skilled and adventurous. I don't get a lot of editorial pushback. So I'm free to make my stories about whatever I want them to be about.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
I love that.
It is a really incredible level of trust that I don't take for granted.
And I guess as a bit of an extension on that, speaking about your incredible descriptions of the creature, and you're also pretty famous for your extreme depictions of body horror. How do you go about writing the details of a scene like that where it's just so graphic? How do you know what's enough and how far you want to take that?
I have another anecdote for this one. My favorite ex, whenever we watched a movie together, he would get really high, and if something bad happened in the movie, like, say, the scene where Hooper is in the cage in Jaws and the shark is ramming the cage, he would look at me with total sincerity and he would say, I would hate it if that happened to me. And so I think about something that I would hate if it happened to me, and I start from there. Who wants the skin peeled back from their arm? Nobody.
Definitely not.
And then you just find the absolute worst way to express that, and you keep going.
They're so evocative. I just think one of the early scenes in Cuckoo with Nadine when she's first being,
When she bites, when she arm.
Yep, when she bites the arm, was like, I could hear it, like I could literally hear it and smell it and see it, and it was so, I like clutching my own arm, which again is like such a testament, because it's not often, I think, in reading that you have that sense of like needing to protect your own body or like cover your own body for how vivid the imagery is. So I'm extremely excited to see what you've got in store for us next with your latest novella, especially hearing it's so different again from Manhunt and Cuckoo.
Yeah, it's I would say much more in the territory of Hellraiser or the Censor Millimeter.
Oh my God,
I also love stories about film. I'm a lifelong devotee.
Millimeter, was that Netflix TV series, or am I getting that mixed up with something else?
I think you're getting it mixed up. This is his movie with James Gandolfini and Nick Cage and Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah, yes. Amazing. I was thinking of this fairly recent TV series on Netflix. The name escapes me, but I thought it was excellent. It was also a horror.
Brand New Cherry Flavor?
No, it was also about a film restorer, and a black film restorer is paid like huge amounts of money to go stay out in the middle of nowhere in the woods and work on fixing and restoring all this film that's been damaged. And
haven't heard of it.
Incredible. It was, oh my God, it was amazing. I'll it's going to bug the crap out of me. I'll think of it. But I've been waiting eagerly for a season 2. It's like they set it up for a season 2 and it just never came. But it was excellent. I thought it was really excellent.
That's the TV landscape these days. Everything gets canceled.
Stupid. Also, it was like only
it's short-sighted.
It mustn't have been that expensive for them to make, because there was like 3 cast members. It was just so excellently done. It's disappointing, eh? This is a bit of a tangent, but I heard you talking on the Trixie and Katya podcast about how you loved Tender as the Flesh, and I just wanted to have a minute to bond with you over that, because that final line was, I literally am not kidding you when I say I think about it every day.
I think
I
it's one of the
literally think about
finest
it every
final
day.
lines in horror.
It stayed with me. I don't think I've read anything so haunting in my life. It was so fantastic.
To my mind, there's no serious competition with that novel for best horror novel of the century so far.
So incredible. She's got another one coming out this year too, which I'm
Yes, I
also very excited to read.
just got an advance copy and I'm vibrating.
I'm excited. Will you do a review on your Patreon?
I usually don't review new books, um, but you never know. I might be moved.
Well, maybe we should all just subscribe and keep an eye out just in case, because you never know.
Well, I'm not going to argue anyone out of it.
So, there is a rising trend of dark fiction, or unhinged fiction, if you will, and the unlikable protagonist. Sometimes I refer to it as good for her or women's wrongs. Some people view these genres as being a bit problematic, while others, including myself, view it as almost a bit of like course correction or even catharsis. How do you feel about the direction of dark fiction at the moment?
I think that problematic has become a word that we use when we want to stop thinking about something and stop analyzing it and just shove it away. And that's unfortunate because in an academic sense, it's a pretty useful word. It's meant to spur discussion, not end it. I think that transgressive fiction is really important. I think it's important for the human mind, for the human sexuality. It's important to keep us in touch with ourselves and to make sure that we don't turn away completely from things that make us uncomfortable. The human reflexes toward disgust or toward sexual arousal, if we don't understand those things, they'll run our lives, whether we want them to or not. You see things like modern right-wing politics, which are fully about repressed libidinal urges to dominate and control and punish. These are people who crusade against porn all day while they're jerking off to destroying your life. That's what
Yeah.
happens if you don't engage with yourself. And horror is a way to engage with yourself.
Yeah, I recently also had an interesting interview with somebody who said horror is not a celebration of death, it's actually a celebration of life, because it makes you feel more alive, and it makes you, like, to your point, you don't want these things to happen to you. It's almost like, yeah, to me, it makes me feel, even dark fiction as well, when I'm reading it and engaging with it. And I almost exclusively sort of read pretty, I don't know, dark, unhinged books because I find it interesting. I often find that the characters are the most interesting, and actually what people classify as being problematic are just characters doing and saying real human shit that people think and feel but don't actually say aloud or don't feel they can. And I have a bit of a theory that because of the almost the push to censor so much of our media and our content now, it's almost like in resistance to that. It's like there's more of it, and there'll be more of it as we increasingly try to have our voices heard. Where do you think the genre or the space of horror and dark fiction is headed? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, as ever, the interesting stuff is going to be on the margins. I think the best work that's happening right now is not in the mainstream. There's good mainstream horror, there's enjoyable mainstream horror, but I think a lot of it is fairly staid and, safe. Whereas on the margins, you have people like Alison Rumfitt who are making these incredibly transgressive and difficult books. And I don't mean transgressive just in some mindless sense of doing everything you can to gross your reader out. I mean it in a really thoughtful sense where you disgust people in order to make them think about things. She's so insightful. She's so violent and horrible. You have Agustina Bazterrica writing in Argentina as a marginal author in the United States. This is where all the best stuff is. These are not books that are winning awards, but they are the books that will shape the future of horror.
I really agree with that. The most interesting work that I've read recently has been from people on the margins, those who are experiencing real challenges or witnessing that and speaking to it. I just finished reading Reservoir Bitches yesterday. That was incredible again, just how she gives voice to the horrors of what it is to be a Mexican woman and the femicide taking place, which I had no idea about. I had no idea that every 2.5 hours a woman in Mexico is killed brutally. Yeah, so that was fascinating. Where do you think your work sits in amongst? Do you think it fits within or resists, or how do you see your own catalogue fitting within these spaces?
I'm making the work that I want to make. And, I have inspirations and touchstones. I think a lot about Shirley Jackson. I think a lot about Clive Barker and Melanie Tam. These are people I'd like to emulate, but ultimately I'm not going to be the one who decides where I fit. If my work is remembered and collected and read after I'm no longer working, we'll see where it shakes out.
What kinds of books would you like to see more of? If we didn't live in a capitalist society and people could make any kind of art that they wanted, would be a dream. What would you love to see?
I'm always thinking this, but I never say it. I would love to see someone write about dinosaurs more. It's like Jurassic Park happened and everyone just decided that's the only dinosaur thing now. We can't do it. You can do it. What's stopping you? Write about dinosaurs.
It's so true. Not even in film and television. Actually, right. Outside of cartoons and Jurassic
Park.
And
people love that shit. They love dinosaurs. Yeah. They can't get enough.
For real. Anytime there's like a dinosaur exhibition at a museum, it like always goes big gangbusters. That's true. The ocean too. Like the depths of the ocean.
I would love to see some more abyssal horror by people who really do their homework.
Yeah. The James Cameron just got his New Zealand citizenship, which is so exciting for me because I geek out over his extensive knowledge of the deep sea and submarines. I find that so amazing.
Love in the ocean.
Oh man, someone needs to. Maybe you could write an interesting deep sea.
I've thought about it.
It's actually one of the things that spooks me most, like the depths of the ocean. I get real scared when I'm swimming. So I'm like, I am in somebody else's home. This is not my home. This is theirs.
My position on the ocean is the same as my position on space. That's none of my business. But I do think a lot about, undersea disasters like the Byford dolphin experiment or the Byford dolphin explosion.
The heck was that? I've never even heard of that.
Oh, a capsule explosively decompressurized.
Not and like the
seal. This was actually a lot more grotesque because it happened as it was ascending.
Shoot.
So we saw the aftermath, and I mean, these people got shredded like spaghetti in a blender.
That's incredible.
They were no longer recognizably human, and it happened in the space of about a second.
That is incredible. I was so fascinated with that recent submarine disaster of like, how did this happen? And seeing actually what would have happened, it's like, that's so scary. I think people do not pay enough respect to the depths and weight of the ocean.
It's really incredible how long rich white idiots have been killing themselves by believing they control the ocean.
God, I know.
And as far as I'm concerned, they can keep doing it.
Yeah, I think that's natural selection, to be honest. Did you see that amazing new telescopic... this new telescope has captured this faraway planet in like a distant galaxy. It's called like... I think the telescope's like the Nebula Telescope or something. And this planet is like unlike anything we've ever seen, unlike anything in our galaxy. And it's like in the shape of an hourglass, like two planets touching. And it's got like something that looks like an eye in the middle of it. It looks like something out of Lord of the Rings.
I haven't seen it. I'm going to have to look at that. That's incredible.
It's so cool. I'm definitely here for more space fiction. Like, and I don't mean science fiction, like really like space opera, not that. Like, give me like an expedition gone wrong. I want to hear that.
Yeah, always better.
Oh yeah. Talking about rich idiots, how do you feel about the fact that the TERF rhetoric and the fascist ideology at the heart of Manhunt is sort of playing out actually in real time at the moment? What is that like in terms of seeing your story from 3 years ago, really actually pretty much happening in real time at the moment.
Sucks to be right. That's what it feels like.
Hmm.
I hate it. I wish
Mm.
I'd been wrong. These people are the most small-minded, tedious, hateful little bigots, and I wish them nothing but misery.
Couldn't have said it better myself. I recently read Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler, and that depressed the shit out of me.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I couldn't believe it that it was written in the early 90s. And I was like, this could be a diary entry from a girl living in America at the moment. That's how it felt. I just couldn't believe how accurate it
Called
was.
it.
She really did. Somebody said, wait till you read Parable of the Talents, you'll think she was psychic. So that's next on my list. I haven't read that one yet. How do you think Manhunt, if it were published today, might be received differently, if at all?
I don't really know. I don't know how the market has changed in the past year. I know that creative industries are running away from trans stories in general. That might have worked to my advantage, or it might not have. It might have been more controversial and thus more exciting to people. It might have been kind of relegated to the back shelf because nobody wanted to promote it. I don't know.
Interesting time, eh? It is definitely. How do you think that current affairs will impact queer horror moving forward?
I think we're in for a pretty tough decade or couple of decades. I think everyone's going to be creating art under a lot of stress and possibly a lot of censorship and oppression. I don't think it will be good for us. A lot of people say, well, times of adversity really create all this great art. I would beg to differ. You might get a renaissance after things settle, but in the meantime, we're all going to be fighting to survive, and it's going to be rough.
Mm, yeah.
And that's if the economy doesn't completely collapse.
Yes, that's assuming there's not a civil war or World War
Right.
Three, God forbid. On a brighter note, thinking about the creature that you wrote in Cuckoo and how fun that was to have a bit of a creature feature. What is your favourite monster or creature in film or television or book of all time?
It's a
Is there
great
just one?
question. You know what I always think of first is the Balrog from the Fellowship of the Ring. That
Yeah.
incredible, iconic design. The roar is like a remixed jet engine and a lion roaring. It feels like something from another world, even within the context of this other world. Some other designs I really love. I love The Thing from the original John
Mm.
Carpenter movie. I love the Tunbok from the first season of The Terror, this sort of
Oh my
horrible
God, I
man bear
love that.
spirit. Thing is scary.
So good. It's so scary. That show was so scary.
And I really, really love the demons from both Wayne Barlow's Sketches of Hell and Guy Davis's The Marquis, which is a really beautiful unfinished comic.
Those are great recommendations.
I think Wayne Barlow is releasing a new art book called The Wildlife of Hell that I'm sure is
Oh
going
my
to be
God.
incredible.
That's a really great premise as well.
Isn't it?
Will you be writing more creatures? Do you think you'll do more around that?
Absolutely.
I'm so excited. It was so gross reading in Cuckoo. I could smell it, I could hear it. My imagination was just going wild. It was just, yeah, really, really one of the best experiences I've had. I think it's a really difficult thing to pull off in fiction, but you absolutely nailed it. It was so good.
Tk you so much.
Chilling. It was a
Here's
very
hoping I can do
chilling.
it again.
Oh, I have every faith in you. I have every faith in you. You've not once disappointed in anything. I'd love to know what your favourite horror novels are and then also what your favourite horror movies are. And I know that you did a countdown in a podcast last year, but I'm keen to know of all time. But let's start with your
Absolutely.
favourite horror novels of all time.
So novels, I would say Jackson's We Have Always Lived in the Castle.
Oh, I thought 1,000% love that.
Melanie Thames' Wilding, which is hands down the best werewolf novel ever written. Tender as the Flesh, of course.
Mm.
Stephen King's It, which is the Moby Dick of horror.
It's a great way to describe it, yes.
Tell Me I'm Worthless by Alison Rumfitt. I would say those are a pretty solid sampling of my favorites. And Books of Blood by Clive Barker.
Mm.
That's unmissable. For film, Ken Russell's The Devils, Jonathan Glazer's Under the Skin, Andrzej Zulawski's Possession, Bram Stoker's Dracula by Francis Ford Coppola. Francis Ford Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula. The 1970s remake of Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Mm.
One of the best. The original Wicker Man, grossly underrated, just an incredible movie. And Cronenberg's The Fly and Dead Ringers.
Great list.
Thank
Great
you, thank you.
list. Have you always been interested in horror? What were you reading as a child? Where did your lore start, I guess, to put it in current Instagram terms?
I got into horror through Stephen King, like everyone else in the world.
Same.
Yeah. I got into his books way too early. My parents were very cool about reading. They let me read whatever I wanted.
Amazing
Um,
parenting. I love that. Yes.
yeah, it's a really baller move. And so I wound up reading it when I was like the same age as the kids in it. I was
Oh
like
my
12.
God. That would be a
And it,
formative experience.
yeah, tell me about it. And, once you've had those experiences as a kid, it's art for kids doesn't really cut it anymore.
God, I totally agree. I remember I read Stephen King from a very young age as well. And I don't know that my mum was a huge reader, and so was my nana, and it was a massive, massive part of my childhood. I don't know that my mum had ever read Stephen King, so maybe she didn't really realize what I was reading, maybe. But I loved Christine. Like, that was,
The John Carpenter Christine movie adaptation is so good.
it was so good. It was so good. And it could have been so bad, but it was amazing.
He really perfected it.
Yes, he did. It was excellent. It was so true to the story. I think that was my first Stephen King. And then one that I read, which is, I would call it one of his deep cuts. It's like not one that people really ever talk about, was Rose Madder, which messed me up. Like, I had nightmares about being chased by a man bull for a long time after that. But it was excellent. Definitely formative and informed my choice of literature moving forward, I think. Which writers have you seen today that you think, or are you really excited to see more from, or who's getting you excited at the moment?
I just read The Saint of Bright Doors by Vajra Chandra Sekra, who's a Sri Lankan author, and a acquaintance of mine. And I was so impressed. It is such a confident book. It feels like someone's
Wow.
20th novel. And I think it's
Wow.
his first or second. I'm really excited to see what Alison Rumfitt does next. Like I said, I'm so excited for Agustina Bastarrica's next novel. This is the problem with being an author, is that I don't have a ton of time to read anymore.
I have
So I'm
heard
not
that.
very caught up on new things coming out. I really enjoyed Primi Muhammad's Butcher of the Forest, and I also really enjoyed Lindsay King Miller's This Is My Body.
I'm going to write that down too. I haven't heard of these.
The other big one for me, Sophia Ajram. I think I'm so, so excited for their next book. Coup de Gras was just astonishing.
Are they horror as well?
Yeah, they are.
Amazing. I feel like horror doesn't always get as much pre-release excitement, so I'm always interested in discovering interesting new writers. The Netflix series I was talking about is called Archive 81, the one
I
with
heard about that. Yeah, I'll check that out.
I thought it was excellent. Maybe I'm alone in that, but I really thought it was great. Thinking about your day-to-day at the moment, and with the new novella coming out, working on the adaptation of Manhunt, and you've also got 2 more books in the pipeline. What does an average day look like for you these days?
Wake up and work. That's about it. I have a social life of some sort. I go out, I have friends over, I see my partners and my family. But by and large, I am in Morlock mode.
Do you have a certain routine or anything, or any kind of writing rituals that helps you get into the groove, or it's habit by now?
I'm just in it. It would be harder to get out of the groove now.
That's so cool. That's so cool. I admire your discipline, truly.
Thank
Like,
you. It
I
was
think that,
very hard come by.
yeah.
When I was just after graduating college, I was really depressed and unmedicated, and I lost a lot of jobs because I would get too depressed to get out of bed, or the quality of my work would suffer because I couldn't focus. And so I had to just sort of beat it into myself over time how to work through feeling bad. So the end result is now that I'm very dedicated, which is great for getting books in on time.
I've also had previously unmedicated times where I couldn't get out of bed and dropped out of college and university as a result, which it's hard to learn or understand your groove, I guess, or know what makes you tick, and how to get the most out of your creative process.
Absolutely.
Did you study writing, creative writing?
I had 1 year long course on it. I was a history major otherwise. I studied the Black Plague.
Oh my God, that's amazing. I just read The Plague by Albert Camus. Have you read that?
I have, yeah.
Did you like it?
I don't know that that is the word I would apply,
Well,
but I do think about it a lot.
did you? I thought it was fascinating reading it post-COVID, and yeah, just thinking about the parallels. It's very interesting. Do you think you'll ever write a book on the plague or similar?
I do have one in my drawer. And I would love to get to it eventually. It's about flagellants walking across Italy during the plague.
Wow, that sounds fascinating. And when you were a kid reading horror, were you also writing? Did you always sort of know that you'd be a writer?
From a pretty young age, yeah. I would say I've been writing almost every day since I was about 14 or 15.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, no,
That's
I've
really
got a
amazing.
whole sheaf of terrible fantasy novels that no one will ever get to read.
That is the fun of it. That's the joy of it. Like, I personally struggle to not self edit and also to just like allow myself to write knowing that it's okay if nobody ever reads it. Like, to just free myself from this expectation of like it has to be readable immediately. And I think I'm not there yet. Like, I haven't got to the place where I can show up every single day and sit down and write. I struggle to break free of my own perfectionism, I guess. And I think it's quite interesting too. Like, obviously, people always talk about your first draft is always garbage, and that's fine. And that's just universally agreed that that is part of the process. But when your taste level or like the standards you have for yourself or your expectations are like Shirley Jackson or something, and your first draft is like just not even anywhere near, it's quite hard to push past that. So once you've bashed out a first draft, how long do you usually leave it before returning to it? Or do you get straight in and start editing?
I usually leave it for about a month.
Mm.
Now, of course, I have an editor. So
Mm.
I usually wait for her input first, and that can take a variable amount of time.
Has that been better or worse for you? Or like how different, I guess, to have that outside input versus being your own first round editor?
It's different. I would
Mm.
say that my books feel a lot more cohesive than they did when I was writing by
Mm.
myself. I used to write in a style that was much more sort of like connected vignettes, and Kelly really helps me keep things in the shape of a novel.
This is to jump back to history again. Have you heard of Aqua Tofana?
No.
I have this Bookstagram account now, but before I had a Bookstagram account, I actually used to be a true crime YouTuber, and I used to be very interested in true crime, is one word or one way to put it. I quit because I had a bit of a moral and ethical dilemma around what I was doing.
Good for you.
But I find this story really amazing, and it's a true story about Giulia Tofana, who was she had an apothecary in Italy in the 1600s, and she used to create tinctures called aqua tofana for women under the guise of it being a beauty or a perfume or a beauty product. And it was actually poison, and
Well, I
she
do
was,
know who this is. Yeah,
yeah,
she went on. She had a very notorious trial, didn't she?
I
Or
don't
am
know
I
that she
thinking of
went to
another poisoner? Italians really just
I
constantly
know.
poisoning each other.
Oh my gosh, I don't think she had a trial. I can't believe I've just forgotten whether she had a trial or not. What I do remember of it is she helped like potentially thousands of women off their terrible husbands when they were in marriages that they didn't want to be a part of anymore and they couldn't get out. Like, these were women who had been subject to domestic violence and forced into marriages they didn't want, or he was a philandering asshole, like whatever. And she was basically the Luigi of her time.
Bless her.
It's an amazing story, and I'm dying for someone to write about her.
Yeah, I'll say that would make a great novel.
Okay, well, lastly, where can people go to order or pre-order your book? What would help you the most?
So any pre-order is a great pre-order, but what I prefer is that you go to a local bookstore and ask them to pre-order it for you. Local bookstores, always great to support them. I owe so much of my success to local booksellers who are really passionate about my work. Other than that, order it anywhere. It's all the same to me.
I will be going to my local bookstore, who I like to make a point of going to them whenever I need to pre-order. It always takes so long to come to New Zealand. Like, we end up, even after a book's released, sometimes we don't get it for like 4 to 6 weeks after it's already released overseas, but it's worth it. It's in my opinion, I would rather wait and know that they get the benefits of that instead of Bezos through my Kindle. So it's absolutely
some
worth it.
potentially good news. My agent just retired, so I've signed with a much larger agency, and they have a dedicated foreign rights department. So I would say you can expect much broader distribution and publication of my stuff in the future.
Yay, that is exciting news. That is exciting news. Thank you so much for being so generous with your time and your recommendations. So excited for your new novella coming out in August. I'm so pumped about it already.
I really hope you like it. And thank you so much for your insightful questions and for taking the time to put this together. It was a real pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We so look forward to hearing more from you. It's been an absolute honor to chat to you and hear a bit more about your inspiration and your process. So thank you very much.